Welcome back into the show, folks. We have a very special guest for you this evening on the phone. He is the founding member, keyboardist of no one other than REO Speedwagon. Please welcome on to the show, Neal Doughty. Neal, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing just fine. I'm in St. Louis for my mom's 92nd birthday party.
I will tell her I said happy birthday.
Yeah, everybody's going to be there, so it'll be fun.
92 years old, you said?
Yeah.
Hey, that's
going strong. She doesn't even know. Yeah, she doesn't know she's old, so we're not going to tell her.
Well, that's great to hear, man. It really is. So I wanted to start off the beginning of this interview by going back in time and talking about the beginning of the band, because even though you're REO Speedwagon, you know, you've sold millions of records, you've had all these hit songs, you have to start somewhere. So tell me, like, how did REO Speedwagon become REO Speedwagon?
Well, we were just we were at University of Illinois in Champaign, bunch of engineering students actually, and a bunch of us that lived in the same dorm, kind of through roundabout way, decided to start a band. And the other guys were already in this band, and I had never been in one in my life, but they had a split with their keyboard player. So I said, well, I can do that. And at the time I couldn't really, but I faked my way into it. And so we started it just totally for fun. Play on weekends at a little bar, and for a long time we didn't even have a name. So we thought, well, if we're going to start working, you know, we better have a name for the band. And I saw that written on a blackboard across the room once because I was in engineering. REO Speedwagon was a big turning point in transportation because it could go fast and carry a heavy load at the same time. And so we went, well, high speed, heavy duty, that sounds like rock and roll to us. So first name we even tried, and we kept it.
So what are the initials for REO Speedwagon, the letters REO? What does that stand for?
Well, that's the initials of Ransom Eli Olds. And he's the one that designed the Oldsmobile for what was General Motors back in the time. Then he had some kind of falling out with them, and he left, and he started his own company making heavy-duty trucks. And they were making those till, you know, like the 50s or 60s. And this all started back at the early 1900s. So they were around for a while. They were pretty famous.
I know there's probably not too many of them around here nowadays, but I'm just curious, like, have you ever got to drive an actual Speedwagon, or anybody in the band ever got to?
Well, you know, people bring them to shows now and then to show them to us, but we don't usually drive them. They don't usually let us. I guess the insurance is really expensive, but the ones that they have restored are just really gorgeous. We've seen some that were so beautiful, and I would love to drive the thing on the street. I'm not sure if they're totally street legal, to tell you the truth, but that wouldn't stop me. I'd just give it a try until a cop pulled me over.
Yeah, no offense, but I'd probably have to think twice, too, before I let a rock star drive a very valuable car like that.
Yeah.
So whenever you...
the cop...
oh, go ahead there, brother.
The cop would fall for the old... Well, the cop would fall for the old line, I'm driving an REO Speedwagon because I'm a member of REO Speedwagon, and then he might cut me some slack because I've gotten out of a few tickets by playing that card.
Oh, I would say so. That's a good card to play. But whenever y'all created this band in college, was it for fun, or were you actually trying to create a big band and hopefully reach that point of fame and fortune?
Well, at first it was just fun, and we still kept up going to school. going to classes, and we were all in engineering classes that were pretty difficult, and we played probably once a week on a weekend. And the first place we played was a tiny bar, and we would end up making like $2 a piece. We'd split the cover charge, and then the owner would make his money on the beer. And so $2 a week, we thought, well, we're going to have to get better jobs than that, to buy a house or something. But then word got around campus and became very popular on campus, to the point where our management brought this producer out from New York, and he mainly was impressed by the crowd response, and took us to New York, and we made our first record, actually across the border in Connecticut. And he shopped it around and found some people at that time was Epic Records, and they loved it. They loved it. It took about a year for him to get the thing out, but once that first album was out, that opened up a whole new thing, and we started opening for big acts, like especially when they were in the Midwest, which was still our strong point. Mm-hmm. And we toured with the Eagles and Doobie Brothers and, you name it, the groups that were really big back then. They'd pick us up when they were in the Midwest, because we were known. I called us the most famous opening act in the country. So that's how we got started. And finally, we got a record big enough to tour on our own. And we just kept thinking, well, it's kind of going the right direction, so let's keep going and see what happens.
Yeah, so you're opening up for these big bands, man, like the Eagles and the Doobie Brothers, people I'm sure that you kind of grew up listening to. But everybody has that point, though, in the entertainment industry, when they finally have that feeling of, wow, I made it. So what was that point for you? When did you finally say to yourself, wow, I've actually made it somewhere in life?
Well, actually, I mean, when we put out High Infidelity, and it went to number one for about 3 or 4 months all over the United States, and did well in some overseas countries, and went, well, we got a number one record. That's a pretty big deal. And it, changed our whole touring, and we got to tour many more places. But just recently, we got the Diamond Award, which is pretty rare. You get it if you've sold 10 million copies of the same album. Mm-hmm. And High Infidelity just crossed the 10 million mark. And for that reason, we're going to play as many High Infidelity songs as we can remember on the tour this year. And I've been working them up a little bit during sound check. So it could be between 4 and 8 songs from High Infidelity, which really still hold up. They're really fun to play, and hopefully also fun to listen to.
Yeah, it is fun to listen to, man, because that's the thing that I've always really digged about your guys' music, is it seems timeless, and that's hard to accomplish in music, is a sound that is just timeless. And I think that y'all have really pulled that off, especially with the record High Infidelity. But I always think it's fun to ask this question with big people like you that I get a chance to talk to, because, see, I've been to your shows before. I grew up listening to your music, so this is kind of a starstruck moment for me. Have you ever been starstruck by anybody in the industry, as they say?
Oh, well, yeah, it happened a lot of times. I mean, we played a show with Ringo, and I still haven't run into McCartney, but Ringo's pretty big, and I think everybody in my age group is starstruck by the remaining Beatles, because they're kind of what made us want to be in a band. I always say their greatest contribution to music was back then in the 60s, when the Beatles were so big. Mm-hmm. They made every teenage kid wanted to be a musician, and many of them did it. And with all that, it's such a deep bench of very talented musicians. I think that's what the Beatles gave us, and the music of that era is has never gone away. So that's we kind of happened at the right time, 70s and 80s. People never forgot that music.
Yeah, and still today, I mean, the Beatles, that's the legendary group, like you said, really started the path for a whole lot of bands out there. But I'm really thankful that I got to talk to you, the keyboard player, because I grew up in a family where so many members, including my mom, grandmother, all my aunts, they were keyboard, organ, piano players. But a lot of them, they always have their go-to piano or go-to keyboard. So what's your go-to piano or keyboard?
Well, I think my favorite is, I still play a Hammond B3, the classic organ of rock and roll, especially 70s and 80s. And it's that big wooden thing you see on stage, and I'm standing behind it, but it's, it looks like an antique-looking wooden instrument, and it has a very distorted, very powerful sound. It's kind of as close to a guitar as you will get on a keyboard instrument. So I like that pretty much. That's probably what I play the most. There's a couple of songs I play piano, and I still really like that too. So,
well, for you, is it keyboard or piano? Which one do you enjoy more?
Well, I'd say the number one is organ, then piano, and then keyboard or synthesizer, as I call it. But I don't use synthesizer very much, just kind of for a little bit of sweetening on top of things.
Yeah, the cool effects, all that jazz. So I want to kind of go back to the beginning again here. When did you start playing the keys?
Kind of in high school. And there was a really old beat up piano in my parents' basement. And I started learning Beatles songs by ear, really. That's how I taught myself. I never really took a lesson. But it was fun learning their songs, and, I'd play them at parties. But I never, ever thought that it would become a profession for me. That just all came about when I got away to college.
Okay, and I've been listening to a lot of your songs here recently, just really analyzing everything. And I take a song like Roll with the Changes, for instance. I hear the beginning of it, and it just sounds like you're all over the place on that piano. And I thought this would be a cool question to ask you. What is the most difficult REO song to play while on stage?
Well, for me, I think it's Can't Fight This Feeling, because it's a pretty complicated part. Took me a week to get it right in the studio. Just kind of wrote it 2 or 3 measures at a time, but it's, even though it's a little difficult, and I'm mistakes which really show up because it's just me and Kevin, but it definitely gives me a chance to show off because it's just piano and vocal and going for like the whole first verse. So that makes that thing really rewarding to play. And then, organ songs, it's just, there's a bunch of those. Like, the organ solo on Roll with the Changes that's me playing organ. And, boy, right now, most of the stuff we do are songs that I really like. So, because we had a nice big list we can pick from at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And, trying to go heavy on the high infidelity this year. So,
Oh, I will
we'll
say
see
so.
how that works out.
Well, y'all formed all the way back in 1967. What's keeping you guys going in music right now?
Well, we just keep getting good crowds. I mean, we sometimes play to crowds that are 25,000 people. And we've also played quite a few, auditoriums and even casinos that a lot of them are building really nice showrooms, pretty much designed for rock and country. And some of those things hold thousands and thousands of people. But every place we go, people are still showing up. It's either sold out or it looks like it's sold out. So as long as that's going on, we're saying, well, we're not going to pass this up. And everybody's healthy. We don't. We're all starting to think that our ages are some sort of accounting error. Because we don't feel like what the number says at all. And long as we all feel good, as long as people keep showing up, we're not going to stop.
Well, Neal, that's great to hear, man, because we're looking forward to many, many, many years going out to shows and listening to REO Speedwagon. And I want to thank you for your time today, brother, and we're looking forward to seeing you at the Appalachian Wireless Arena with Sister Hazel on June 5th.
All righty. We'll see you then.
See you then, Neal. Thanks again, man.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, Neal, that'll do it. Thanks again, buddy, and we're really looking forward to the show, man.
Okie doke. Me too.
All right, buddy. I'll see you then. Thanks again.